A man who walks alone does not do so out of necessity, nor out of loneliness, but because he has begun to see the great game for what it is. He has stepped out of the noise, out of the tugging hands that try to shape him into something useful, something acceptable. He has understood, perhaps without even knowing it, that to truly walk alone is not to be isolated, but to be free. Most people fear being alone because in the silence all the things they have run from come creeping in. The thoughts they have drowned out with conversation, the doubts they have covered with certainty, the fears they have avoided by keeping busy. But a man who walks alone does not run from himself. He lets the silence unfold, lets it stretch out before him like an open road, and he walks into it undisturbed. And here's the paradox. The more he embraces solitude, the less alone he becomes. For in the absence of distraction, he begins to see the world as it truly is, not a place filled with separate things, but a vast and intricate dance, where everything moves together, where every sound, every breath, every shadow plays its part. He starts to notice the rhythm of the wind, the way the trees bend without resistance, the way the river flows without asking where it is going. And in that seeing, he understands he is not alone at all. The man who walks alone is not escaping anything, he is returning. Returning to something deeper, something older than words, older than fear. He does not need to explain himself. He does not need to be validated. He simply is, as the mountain is, as the ocean is, as the sky is. And in that being there is power. Not the kind that seeks to control, not the kind that needs to be recognized, but the quiet, effortless power of a man who has nothing to prove, because he already knows who he is. A man who walks alone is not necessarily seeking solitude, nor is he rejecting the world. He is simply moving without the need for an audience, without the compulsion to explain himself. In a world that constantly demands validation, to walk alone is an act of quiet defiance. He is not weighed down by the expectations of others, nor is he bound by the invisible chains of approval. There is a deep strength in this, a power that does not come from dominance, but from the absence of fear. Most men are terrified of being alone. They fear the silence, the space where their thoughts echo back at them without distraction. They drown themselves in company, in conversation, in noise, believing that if they keep moving, they can escape the presence of their own mind. But the man who walks alone does not run from himself. He lets the silence expand around him, lets it press against his skin, lets it seep into his bone. And in that silence he finds something unexpected, clarity. There is a peculiar kind of peace that arises when a man stops searching for approval, when he no longer feels the need to be seen, when he no longer seeks permission to exist as he is. He becomes like the wolf that roams the mountains, moving without hesitation, without explanation. He does not need to announce his presence, nor does he seek recognition. He is not part of the pack, not because he despises it, but because he has outgrown the need to belong. To walk alone is not to be without direction. It is not to wander aimlessly, lost in a world that does not care. On the contrary, it is to move with a purpose so deep that it does not require justification. A man who walks alone follows an internal compass, one that is not swayed by the shifting tides of opinion. He is not seeking shelter in the approval of others, nor is he defined by their acceptance. He understands that to truly know oneself, one must be willing to stand apart, to strip away the masks, to see what remains when all the pretenses are gone. Most people live their lives in constant pursuit of something: recognition, success, love, meaning. They are always chasing, always reaching, always believing that fulfillment is just around the corner. But a man who walks alone has stopped chasing, not because he has given up, but because he has realized that there is nothing to chase. The things that most people seek are mere illusions, flickering mirages that vanish the moment they are grasped. He has seen through the game, and in seeing he has stepped outside of it. There is a rawness in solitude, an unfiltered confrontation with reality that few are willing to face. When a man is alone, truly alone, there is no one left to impress, no one to deceive. He sees himself as he is, without the embellishments, without the stories he has told himself. And in that seeing, something extraordinary happens. He becomes real. He is no longer a collection of borrowed beliefs, no longer a reflection of the world around him. He stands as he is, without apology, without disguise. The world does not understand a man who walks alone. It tries to label him, to categorize him, to fit him into a box that makes sense. Is he a recluse, a rebel, a wanderer? But he is none of these things. He is simply a man who has chosen to walk his own path, to move at his own pace, to be untethered. And in that choice, he has found something far more valuable than belonging. He has found freedom. But freedom is not always comfortable. There is an uneasiness that comes with stepping outside the familiar, a weight that settles in the chest when one realizes that there is no one else to lean on. Most people would rather remain in the safety of the known, even if it means being shackled. They would rather be caged birds than risk the vastness of an open sky. But a man who walks alone has chosen the sky, despite its uncertainty. He has accepted that true freedom comes with responsibility. The responsibility of standing on his own, of making his own way, of carrying his own burdens. He walks, not because he must, but because he chooses to. His steps are steady, unhurried. He does not look back, nor does he seek a destination. He simply moves, in rhythm with something deeper, something beyond words. He does not need to explain himself. He does not need to be understood. He simply is, and that is enough. The man who walks alone is not bound by the distractions that consume others. He is not pulled by the endless demands of the world, nor is he caught in the cycle of seeking and being sought. He understands that most of what people chase is fleeting. Status, validation, security, things that dissolve like mist when examined closely. And so he does not chase. He moves with an awareness that most never cultivate, a quiet understanding that there is nothing outside of him that he truly needs. There is a kind of patience in his steps, an unshaken presence that does not rush, does not hesitate. He has no need to arrive anywhere because he knows there is nowhere to go. The journey is not towards something, but into something, into himself, into the vast silence that most fear. This silence is not empty, not void of meaning, but full, brimming with depth that only a few will ever touch. It is in this silence that he begins to hear, not with his ears, but with something deeper, something older than words. Most people live their lives in a constant state of resistance. They resist discomfort, resist loneliness, resist the unknown. They fill every moment with noise, with movement, with distraction, terrified of what they might find if they were to stop. But the man who walks alone does not resist. He does not run from solitude, does not shrink from the vastness of existence. Instead, he allows it to wash over him, to carve him into something raw and unshaped, something real. And in this surrender, he discovers something that cannot be given, cannot be taught. He finds an intimacy with the world that no amount of attachment can bring. He sees the wind for what it is, not as something passing through, but as something alive, moving as he moves. He watches the trees bend without effort, the rivers flow without asking why, and he understands without needing to understand. To walk alone is not to reject the world, but to see it without distortion. It is to walk among people without being entangled in their illusions, to listen without being pulled into their fears. He can sit in a crowded room and hear everything, yet be moved by nothing, not because he is indifferent, but because he sees through it all. The desperation hidden behind laughter, the insecurity masked by confidence, the loneliness disguised as connection. He does not judge it, nor does he try to fix it. He simply sees, and in seeing he is free. A man who walks alone does not cling to things, not because he despises them, but because he understands their nature. Everything comes and goes, relationships, possessions, even the body itself. To hold on to something as if it were permanent is to invite suffering, and so he lets things pass through him as the wind passes through the trees, touching but never trapping. He experiences everything deeply but does not chain himself to anything. There is a quiet strength in this. Most mistake it for detachment, for coldness, but it is neither. It is simply the knowing that nothing can truly be possessed. Not people, not moments, not even oneself. He does not waste energy trying to hold on to what must inevitably change. Instead, he meets everything with open hands, allowing the world to flow as it must, without resistance. He walks not because he is searching, but because he has already found. His steps are neither hurried nor hesitant. He does not look behind him, nor does he strain his eyes towards the horizon. He moves with the knowledge that there is nowhere to arrive, that every step is already the destination. And in that knowing there is peace. The man who walks alone does not fear the road ahead, nor does he dwell on the path behind. He moves as the river moves, without hesitation, without regret. There is no one calling his name, no voices telling him where to go, no hands pulling him back. He is untethered, drifting between worlds, belonging to none. And yet in his solitude he is more connected than those who surround themselves with endless distractions. He has learnt that true companionship is not found in mere proximity, but in the deep understanding of existence itself. To be alone is not to be abandoned, it is not to be lost, nor is it to suffer. The man who walks alone has seen that most people are never truly with themselves, even when they are surrounded by others. They cling to conversations, to relationships, to identities, hoping these things will shield them from the great silence that lingers beneath it all. But the silence is not an enemy. It is a teacher, a mirror, a doorway. To embrace it is to step into something vast, something beyond the small self that most spend their lives protecting. There is no rush in his steps, no urgency in his movements. He does not walk as one escaping, nor does he carry the weight of longing. He simply moves, responding to the moment as it unfolds. He does not measure his movement, as he does not measure his worth by the standards of others. He understands that there is no race, no finish line, no destination. There is no race. He has seen that everything he needs has been here all along, within him, waiting in the silence he once feared. When he looks at the world, he does not see it as separate from himself. The mountains do not merely stand before him, they breathe, they pulse, they exist as he does. The sky does not hang above him as something distant and apart. It is in him as much as he is in it. There is no division between him and the vastness he walks through. He does not need to claim it, does not need to name it. He simply sees, and in seeing, he dissolves into it. Most people are desperate to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be remembered. They build identities like fortresses, piling on accomplishments, relationships, opinions, hoping to make themselves real. But the man who walks alone has let go of the need to be anything at all. He does not seek to be remembered, nor does he fear being forgotten. He knows that the self is like a shadow, always shifting, never solid, an illusion cast by the mind. To cling to it is to suffer. To release it is to be free. He does not belong to the past, nor does he wait for the future. He does not measure time in days or years, but in moments, in breaths, in the way the wind changes as the sun begins to set. He has no need for certainty, no hunger for control. He has given himself to the unknown, to the unfolding mystery of existence, and in doing so, he has found what most spend their lives searching for. The road does not ask him where he is going, nor does he ask it to take him anywhere. He moves because movement is the nature of things. The river flows, the clouds drift, the seasons change, and he walks. Not towards an end, not away from anything, but simply because he is here, because there is no other place to be. And in that simplicity there is peace. The man who walks alone does not concern himself with explanations. He does not waste words trying to make others understand his path, nor does he expect anyone to follow. There is no need to convince, no desire to be heard, for he has learnt that truth does not require an audience. He moves in silence, not because he lacks things to say, but because he has seen that most words are empty, attempts to fill the void rather than embrace it. He watches as others cling to certainty, to beliefs handed down to them, to ideas that have never been questioned. He sees the way they build their lives around expectations, obligations, traditions that have long since lost their meaning. He sees how they chase after things they do not truly want, how they bind themselves to people who do not truly know them. He sees it all, and he does not judge. He simply understands. There is a freedom that comes with solitude, But it is not the kind that most imagine. It is not the freedom of doing whatever one pleases, of casting off all responsibility, of living without ties. It is something deeper, something quieter. It is the freedom of being at peace with what is, the freedom of not needing to seek, not needing to prove, not needing to be more than what one already is. It is the freedom of knowing that nothing is missing, that nothing needs to be added or taken away. The world will always try to pull him back. It will whisper of comfort, of belonging, of the supposed joys of a life filled with people, plans, and purpose. It will tell him that to be alone is to be incomplete, that to walk without a destination is to be lost. But he knows better. He has tasted the stillness that most never touch. He has seen the illusion of permanence, the way everything shifts, the way even the strongest bonds are temporary. He does not resist life, nor does he resist the world. It simply does not hold him. There are moments when he crosses paths with others, moments when he is invited to step into their world. He does so without hesitation, without fear of losing himself, for he knows he belongs to nothing and no one. He listens to their stories, their laughter, their sorrow, but he does not absorb them. He moves as the wind moves, touching without holding, passing without staying. He does not seek to change anyone, nor does he allow anyone to change him. Most people live in a state of waiting for love, for success, for meaning, for some great revelation that will make everything clear. They do not realize that what they are searching for is already here, in this moment, in this breath. The man who walks alone does not wait. He does not postpone his life for a future that may never come. He does not measure his days by achievements, by milestones, by the approval of others. He simply lives, fully, deeply, without hesitation. There is a power in moving through the world without attachment, a power that does not demand attention, does not seek recognition. It is not the power of control, nor the power of dominance, but the power of presence, the power of a man who needs nothing, fears nothing, and clings to nothing. He does not ask for permission to exist as he is. He does not apologize for the space he takes up, nor does he shrink himself to fit into places he does not belong. He has walked through loneliness and emerged on the other side. He has faced the silence that most run from, and he has discovered that it is not empty but full of life, full of meaning, full of a depth that cannot be found in the noise of the world. He does not need to escape himself, for he has made peace with what he is. He does not seek to be understood, for he no longer needs to be. His steps leave no footprints, his presence leaves no weight. He does not hold on to the past, nor does he grasp at the future. He simply moves, not to reach an end, but because movement is the nature of all things. The stars shift, the tides rise and fall, the earth spins, and he walks. And in that walking there is no lack, no longing, no need for more. There is only this moment, stretching into eternity, as vast and silent as the sky, as advertised as the sky, as advertised as the sky, as the man who walks alone is not lost, nor is he incomplete. He does not walk because he has been cast out, nor because he rejects the world, but because he has chosen to move beyond it. He has seen through the illusions, the distractions, the endless chase for meaning outside oneself. He does not walk with arrogance, nor with defiance, but with the quiet certainty of a man who knows that everything he needs is already within him. His path is not one of sorrow, but of strength, not of loneliness, but of liberation. He is not afraid to stand alone, because he understands that true power does not come from the approval of others. It comes from the unshaken knowledge of who and what he is. Let the world call him what it will. Let them misunderstand him, question him, try to pull him back into their grasp. He does not resist them, nor does he try to explain himself. He simply walks, steady and unshaken, with the wind at his back and the sky stretching endlessly before him. For the man who walks alone has already arrived.